Welcome to Now Serving a Side of Therapy, a client's introductory guide into the therapeutic world. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. To schedule a therapy appointment, call us at 650-223-5605. For more information on this and other related topics, check out our blog at isotherapy.com, where you can also contact us through our website. I'm your host, Dalton Huckaby, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm grateful you joined me. Hey there, Dalton Huckaby here, licensed marriage and family therapist, host of Now Serving a Side of Therapy podcast. And today we're going to be talking about the fundamental elements of what makes a good client-therapist relationship. Some of the information here that we'll be talking about today is covered in Dorothy E. Stubbs' article called The Therapeutic Alliance, the Fundamental Element of Psychotherapy. So there's a lot of research out there, right, that shows that the client-therapist relationship is a strong predictor of successful therapeutic outcomes. So that begs the question, what is it about the client-therapist relationship alliance that contributes to this aspect of progress in the client's life? So the client-therapist relationship is a unique one, in that oftentimes the therapist can be with the client in a way that no one else is in their life. And, sometimes clients will say too, like, I've never told this to anyone, right? So you can imagine that this aspect of creating a safe, secure place for sacred conversations to be had is paramount. And so that's why confidentiality also has a huge role, right, in clients' success too, in that they need to feel like, hey, I have this confidential space where I feel safe and I can talk about this information that I need to talk about. And everybody's at their own pace, right? That's the idea here too. We're meeting the client where they're at, going at their pace. And so at the end of the day, right, the client is the expert of their own life. And so understanding the client's hopes, their barriers, their questions, their concerns around treatment and the therapeutic process can help the therapist better understand and support the client in working towards their therapeutic goals. And so my approach to therapy is often a collaborative one, not too uncommon, right? But it encourages client involvement and participation so that they can digest the information in their own way and adapt it to fit their unique style and path towards their own healing. So in episode 1, we talked about attunement. Anna talked about attunement. And that comes into play here, right? Another aspect of the client-therapist relationship that makes it so successful is that the client has an opportunity to feel heard and validated. This involves this aspect of attunement, wherein can I engage with you in an empathetic way, non-judgmental, again, creating that safe and secure place, right, to feel understood. And oftentimes in therapy, we're working on attachment wounds too. And so that's important to keep in mind as we contemplate this idea of what makes the client-therapist relationship so important for the client in achieving the results that they're hoping for in their own therapy. So this aspect of attuning, having a safe, secure place, not judged, right? Again, I'm not here to say anyone is doing anything wrong. We're just here to offer a different perspective, right? And so this aspect of ensuring the client's autonomy and their own agency can build trust. And again, we're working on attachment wounds. So this aspect of building trust within the client-therapist relationship is huge, especially when we think about how shame can be a real barrier for clients to want to open up. Again, everyone's going to, come around and talk about things in their own time. And so we want to acknowledge that can be a natural unfolding over time, right? As long as the client is feeling accepted and safe, and secure and all that, right? So if the therapist is able to hold the space for the client, no matter what is coming up for them, right, then that shows the client that, hey, therapist is able to be there for me in this very kind of specific way, right? Maybe I can start to kind of show up and be that way for myself too. And so this can lead to this process of self-acceptance, right? Oftentimes there might be hard things that we just are in denial about, or we don't want to look at, or avoiding, right? So enhancing this aspect of self-acceptance can be another factor that contributes to how that's developed within the client-therapist relationship, and thus increasing bonds and contributing to client successful therapeutic outcomes. So certainly throughout the time together, right, we want to check in saying, hey, how's the progress going? Are we on track with your goals? Did we complete the goals you originally set out for? Do you need to create new ones, right? All of that shows the client that you're relaying a sense of ongoing curiosity and concern for the client's well-being and their progress. So in episode 3 with Suzy, she walks us through some of these different factors and talks about how they can be incorporated into discussions within the client-therapist relationship. Check it out.
A lot of people, I think you ought to think twice. I mean, you may really like your therapist, and a friend of yours or even an acquaintance needs a therapist. You may want to rethink, do you want the therapist should also be thinking about is this correct for my client, for me to see and have that conversation. Therapy is this wonderful container where you can practice having some very difficult conversations, and the therapist should be able to do that with you. I always tell my clients too, I can't take you any further than where I've gone personally in my own therapy. So, those are some hard conversations too, when I admit that, hey, you know what? Am I serving you? Am I able to, do you feel my understanding here? And I've made, even if it's a brief referral to another therapist that can support that client in a different way.
Yeah, you're bringing up a good point too, right? As far as like, do I feel that the therapist training and experience is a good match for my needs, and does that contribute to that good fit?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I appreciate you mentioning that, because it's not all about, oh, I like you, I want to work with you kind of thing, or XYZ people think you're great. Is my experience appropriate for your needs at this time? So, and having some questions prepared when you do interview. I suspect you've already talked about that, but what are some important questions that you may want to know? Now, if you've never done therapy, that's hard to come up with, but if you do know people who have, therapy experience, that's been, what's a question you think would have been helpful to you to ask your therapist before you began therapy? So,
yep, that's a good idea, because that actually encourages the client's participation in contributing to that client-therapist relationship.
Right. Mm-hmm. Something I also wanted to touch upon, I think where I want to play both, both sides of the same coin, devil's advocate. Therapy is not about going to therapy and feeling great after every session. Effective and good therapy should make you uncomfortable at times. So also keeping that in mind and continuing that conversation when you return to the therapist the next week, saying, hey, I walked out of here really upset. Hey, can we talk about that? Or how can we address this? Because it stuck with me for X number of hours or maybe even days. Because that could be a really good edge for the therapist to help you unwind and process. Or it could be an indication that the therapist is jostling you up, but not able to take you through to process it completely so you can then, move forward.
Yeah, you're talking about risks and benefits of therapy, right? Like we talk about when you're kind of first establishing that connection with the therapist, right? Perhaps there's some discussion around, sometimes at first it might feel awkward or more challenging before things get better.
Right. Right. And of course, there are a few clients that come in and say, I want to get this over with as quickly as possible. I want to move through this because they're really in need of feeling differently. And hopefully the therapist is talking about this is a journey. It's not a goal. There's not an end point necessarily because your life is, an ebb and flow. So slowing down and becoming more aware in the moment too. Hopefully your therapist is helping you do that. And quite frankly, are they meeting your needs? I mean, are they addressing what you're bringing into session, or are they bringing in things that you're like, because that's happened to me. They've brought in things that I've like, is that what I just said? So it was good that they brought that to my attention, but actually they were off track, and hopefully they're checking in with you. Is this meeting your needs? And if it isn't, that's a different conversation.
That could be a red flag, right? When we're talking about these
Exactly.
red flags, like, is the therapist kind of like clarifying, right? And, showing me that they understand what I'm saying, right? And trying to understand me at my level.
Right. Well, no one should feel judged or dismissed in a session. I'm, of course, things happen, and where therapists are human beings too. But in general, you should feel heard and validated as much as possible. So.
Thanks for tuning in this week. Be sure to check out our next episode as we continue to explore more elements of your therapeutic journey.